What's going on, guys? Marco here with Dynasty Nerds, and I am bringing you my 2022 breakout players. All right, so I've got 4 players who I think are going to be tremendous breakouts in the 2022 season. So go ahead and try to shoot for these guys on your Dynasty rosters now, or if you have them, hold on because you are in for an awesome season. All right, we're going to kick it off with my number one guy. He's coming off of a major injury, but he's more than a year removed by the time week 1 hits, and it's running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Travis Etienne. So obviously James Robinson is going to eventually get on the field. I don't think he's going to be 100% for maybe the entirety of this season with that late Achilles tear. So I think that is obviously something that lends to Travis Etienne getting more opportunity, as well as Travis Etienne is a major weapon in the receiving game, in the passing game. Over his last 2 seasons at Clemson, he eclipsed 1,000 receiving yards. He has shown that he is not just a fast, athletic player, but he can evolve, he can grow, he can develop. He showed that over his last 2 seasons in college, and I think that's one of the most important things people kind of miss. When you look at college production, you don't always just look at the numbers, although they can help you kind of determine what this prospect profile might look like. One of the major things I look for is development in their game, adding parts to their game. And Travis Etienne is one of the guys who did that. He had higher draft capital, granted from a insane regime that is no longer there, but higher draft capital than Javonte Williams. I had him just ahead of Javonte Williams in my prospect rankings when they were coming into the NFL. And obviously that's kind of a hot take in itself, but we'll press pause on that because here's what the Jaguars wide receiver room is looking at. If you look at all of their top wide receivers, the top 5 career season reception totals for Marvin Jones was 76, Christian Kirk was 77, Evan Ingram 64, Laviska Shenault 63, and Zay Jones 56. Trevor Lawrence threw the ball 602 times last year. If they all reach their career highs, spoiler, they're not going to, that would leave 266 attempts. Now, while those are not all going to go to Travis Etienne, a lot of them will. I think Travis Etienne is a lock to be an RB2. I actually have him as a very low-end RB1 for the 2022 season, and I think you are approaching the part of the season, a part of the offseason, where his stock is going to continue to rise, and he is going to be untouchable, and so he's a guy I think is truly going to see one of the biggest jumps in running back values right now. In Dynasty Leagues, he is the most underrated young running back that you can acquire, that you can roster on your teams. I love Travis Etienne for 2022 and beyond. We're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to go to tight end. And at tight end, I have Chicago Bears tight end Cole Kmet. We know he is heading into year 3 of his career, which we know traditionally is the year if a tight end breakout is going to happen. A lot of the times, year 3 is when that does happen. He's going currently as tight end 18. But when you look at a little bit more into these numbers, that seems kind of absurd for what he's probably going to see opportunity and productivity-wise. So last season, he ranked 8th in targets, 9th in air yards. He played over 28% of his snaps in the slot. And if you look at the Bears roster, they haven't really figured out a player to fill that slot role for them. Sure, Velus Jones could potentially play in that spot, but I don't think he really will be for the long term. So I think Cole Kmet's still going to see over 20% opportunity in the slot as well. And if you look at the last 10 years at the tight end position, there has only been 3, count them 3 tight ends in the last 10 years who saw 125 targets and didn't finish as a top 5 tight end. Now, I don't have Cole Kmet currently projected for 125 targets, but I have him just over 115. I have him sitting at 118 targets on the season. And right now, if you look at any tight end who's seen 100 targets, most of them are finishing as tight end 1s, top 10 tight ends even, outside of maybe Evan Ingram in the last 5 to 6 years. So when you look at Cole Kmet, he's going as tight end 18, and I think he has a very strong case to be a top 10 tight end, and almost undoubtedly, assuming health, a top 12 tight end. So go see what you can get. Go see what you can give up to go get Cole Kmet in your leagues, because he is headed for a huge breakout. And if Justin Fields is the real deal, if he does take another big step in this season with this new regime, Cole Kmet could see his value absolutely skyrocket. All right, the last 2 guys I have for you as 2022 breakouts are wide receivers. The The first one is a guy I've been a huge fan of for a very long time, and he is in a situation where a lot of people have been fading because of the additions over the offseason, and it's Elijah Moore. Obviously, they added Garrett Wilson, they added Breece Hall, two guys who will definitely be involved in the passing game, but when you look at Elijah Moore, he has another year in the system over these rookies. From week 7 to 13, basically right after the bye week when he really started getting involved, to his injury, so it's not just an arbitrary span of weeks, he scored over 17.5 fantasy points per game. I think that Garrett Wilson is going to be a very good wide receiver in the NFL. I think he's a very talented player. But I do not think that it is crazy to say that Elijah Moore, at the very least, is as talented as Garrett Wilson. I actually think Elijah Moore might be a little bit better of a long-term option than Garrett Wilson. I love him in dynasty leagues, and I think Elijah Moore right now has seen his value dip because of the additions of Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, things like that, and obviously the question marks of Zach Wilson. I don't think Zach Wilson will ever really be a true world beater quarterback, but I think he will improve. He's going to see better protection. You know, he was one of the quarterbacks coming out of college that performed absolutely awful under pressure. The health of this O-line is huge. Mekhi Becton's coming back. They added weapons and options for him to be able to utilize in this offense. And I think Elijah Moore, while he might see a little bit dip in volume, it's not going to be enough for me to me to be scared off of him in 2022. I've got him as my wide receiver 23, and he is going a little bit below that right now in ADP. So Elijah Moore is a guy who I think you can get right now, and he is a lock to be a wide receiver 2. He might have some boom weeks. He might have a couple weeks where he isn't the number one target, but right now, the value you can get Elijah Moore at is premier, and he is set up for a big breakout season because this is the season where he's got a leg up on the competition that was just added. All right, the last guy we got to talk about is a guy who I've been in on, out on, and I didn't think I was going to be that in on Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown this season. But when I finished my projections, I'm still tweaking them a little bit, so I'll hit you guys with some of those in the near future. But when I finished my first run at my projections, Hollywood Brown ended as my wide receiver 11. Now, he might end up falling to around my wide receiver 13, 14 when it's all said and done. But what I'm mainly saying is that he is in for a huge 2022. In dynasty leagues right now, if you've got Hollywood Brown, he is someone who's going to see 6 games where he doesn't have to compete with DeAndre Hopkins for targets. I think he's going to lead this team in targets for the entirety of the 2022 season. I've got him just over 135 targets, eclipsing the kind of 135 target range. And I think he could be someone who has some long-term dynasty value that a lot of people are underrating right now. I don't think he is a true dynasty wide receiver 1, but for 2022, he is definitely in that conversation. For 2023, he might be. It really depends what this offense does going forward and what they do with their coaching after 2022. It could be a little bit dicey. But I think Hollywood Brown is going to see plenty of opportunity in this offense, something that he hasn't seen a ton of in Baltimore. Obviously, he was their wide receiver 1, but they didn't need the wide receiver position that much. They relied heavily on their running backs and their tight ends, and obviously Lamar Jackson. And it's a little bit similar with Kyler Murray being such a mobile quarterback, but he is still someone who throws the ball a ton compared to Lamar Jackson. This is an offense that utilizes getting receivers downfield fast, and they love the Hollywood Brown prototype of a wide receiver. And again, 6 weeks of no DeAndre Hopkins means 6 weeks of fantasy studness for Hollywood Brown. Remember, follow me on Twitter at Marco_14P. Hit the link below to subscribe to the Nerd Herd so you can get access to rankings, all of our tools, GM tool, everything in between. We've got a ton for you. You get a little discount if you use the link below. And I will answer any questions I can on Twitter at Marco_14P. I don't get notifications for YouTube comments. Drop them below. I'll get to them the best I can. The last video, I think I still got to get back to some of those. So make sure to hit me up on Twitter if I'm not seeing your YouTube comments. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you next time. Peace.